good morning, good day, good evening. Whenever you are watching this, I am recording on the auspicious day of 2/22/2022. And it's a Tuesday. So there's lots of twos involved. There's lots of speculation about what this day means. And there's so much going on in the world. How do you even begin? So we'll just start somewhere because there is no beginning and there is no end. And in the last video, I talked about this idea of containment. And I was trying to show you a bit of what it's not. In this video, I wanted to show you a bit of what it is. And it's not ever been more important than in this particular moment in time. And I don't know what you're feeling. I don't know what you're experiencing. I don't know what your processing of all the events includes. But there's a couple things I want to say about this idea and why it's so important and why it's so difficult. And, you've heard me talk about, my 3 mandates for 2022 are to remember who you are, how we get through whatever all of this is, and what we're going to do, what will we build next. And my real focus is on people who are wired for danger. And that danger is really about moving towards what you don't want. And there's nothing more dangerous than the truth. And there's nothing missing more in our world right now than truth. Truth we can trust, truth we can hold on to, truth we can truly believe in. And one of the reasons I talk about this idea of containment and not peace is because the word peace has been co-opted to mean so many things, and it's very difficult to experience what's happening and what's going to be happening and be happy about it. It's very difficult to not be sad or afraid or stressed out. And the difference between peace and containment is really, for me, and this is the problem, with words and semantics and definitions and experiences, is that peace in our culture seems to mean being passive. And in this moment, passivity is the last thing that you need to be doing. Whether it's mental, emotional, spiritual, or physical, being passive is the most dangerous thing you can do. And because we're being inundated and overwhelmed, our nervous systems are quite easily shutting down. And we move into a state of denial or disassociation, or I don't want to deal with it, and then we call that peace. And that isn't peace. Peace isn't pretending like the tsunami isn't coming and just going about business as usual. To me, that's the idea of containment, is to be able to keep it together while the tsunami is coming and still go about whatever needs to be gone about, whether it's rescuing somebody, whether it's securing some kind of container to float by, or something to hold on to, or something to get up out of the way. But it isn't to pretend like the tsunami is not coming. And we've moved into this place where we have this idea that we can magically manifest outcomes out in the world that are way out of our control. We're one person. We can experience calm within crisis and chaos, but we don't have the power to control crisis and chaos. And that's the difference. Containment is really this idea about how we don't always have control over the experiences that we're in, but we do have the ability to make a decision about how we want to go through those. And you can call it peace, you can call it containment, you can call it calm, you can call it all kinds of things. But the reality is that we have turned a corner, and we are moving down a path that is no longer one that we can come back from. There is no the way it was. And when I talk about this idea of remember who you are, it's really the truth of who you are, not as a physical human being in a chaotic world, but the spiritual truth of who you are and being eternal. And there's so many shifts that we need to start making in our own mind space about what reality is, about what truth is, And as I look around, I see that people are falling more and more back into a disassociative state. And even those who are, fighting for freedom, while that's awesome, any therapist will tell you, if you're in a family and all your focus is on the alcoholic or the drug addict, and if things will just be okay, if that one person who's causing all the problems will just stop drinking, stop doing drugs, stop stealing, stop beating me up, all those things, right? If they'll just stop, everything will be okay. And that isn't what happens. What happens is when the person that we identify as the problem stops their behavior, then every other problem that we have comes to light. And most families don't make it because all the energy, all the focus was on protesting and pushing against what you didn't want. You didn't want that person to be drinking and causing chaos. You didn't want that person to be doing drugs and spending all the money that the family has. You didn't want that person to be violent and controlling and keeping you shut down in your house so that you're cut off from your friends, your family, your children. Does any of this sound familiar? What happens at the micro within our family systems is the same thing that's happening at the macro. And one of the things that we're not getting is that when and if, or however how, the great evil that we're looking at stops being the problem, there are no systems in place to take care of all the other issues that have been building for hundreds and thousands of years. So we're in for a really wild ride, and I wanted to talk just for a moment then about what containment looks like in a positive way. And so when I say remember who you are, that truth is true for you, not how I define it for you. But the energy is always the same. And one of the things I always go back to is the movie The Last Samurai. I love that movie for so many reasons. But this one scene, there's two scenes I want to show you briefly because it is a copyright issue. One is when the main character, Tom Cruise, becomes completely defeated and the samurai take him back to their village. But as they enter the village, we see him slumped and broken. And we see them in a powerful state of containment. Now, this is a movie and these are actors, but what they're showing you is the Bushido code that the samurai held, because it was who they were. It defined them so clearly that their way forward was simple and easy, regardless of what the effects were around them. They remembered who they were in that time, at that experience. And the energy that they portray, even as actors, is the power of containment. We see that, the transformation, when the Tom Cruise character comes back into the city with the samurai. They know that they're going to their deaths. They know that their life is over as they knew it. But it doesn't shift who they are. The next piece of video I want to show you happened just yesterday. Some of you may or may not be aware of what's going on in Ukraine. Some of you may or may not understand the historical ramifications, origins, and real issues behind it. Because as I looked at, different people's interpretation, it's just all over the place, and we only have the capacity to believe where our comfort level stops. All right, we're locked down into a belief system, and so it doesn't matter what is or isn't true in terms of this conversation, because what you see happening between these two people, and this was filmed by Patrick Lancaster. He's an American, he's a veteran, he's been living in Ukraine for 8 years, he's been covering this war over there for 8 years. He's showing you the real faces, and what you're seeing is his being very upset. You're seeing a woman, her children, and her father, and she thinks they're all going to be evacuated. And then the father doesn't get on the train. And I watched this originally without subtitles, and I was just really moved because I could see the entire conversation, even though I didn't have the words, through the body language and through the emotion. And that's really what containment is. It doesn't have a verbal component to it. You don't talk, you just are, and you emanate. and how she's realizing that she's probably not going to see him again. And he's making the decision to stay. Now in the video he does say, I'm there to work and I'll just stay at home. But for those of you who don't know, all the men aged 18 to 55 were asked to stay behind and defend their country, their land, their homes. And he's probably a little bit over 55, but you can see from the way he's dressed, that is military. The striped shirt is Russian military. The coat is military. This is a man who's making the decision to stay. And both of these people are making their decisions out of love for situations that they can't control. She wants to protect her children. He wants to protect his family. And it's all being caused by those of us who have not been participating at a greater level in how this world is being operated. Because we've had, all of us, them, us, everyone have had the opportunity to step up and change the systems long before we got to this moment in time, and we didn't choose to. And now we are at the effect of the cause that we did not choose to be involved in. In the same way that when the focused person, the alcoholic, the drug addict, the gambler, the violent man, whatever, woman, just because they leave, all your problems don't go away. So I'm talking about containment as a way to get through. And the best way to get through what's happening now is to remember who you are. Whether it's you as a human, whether it's you as a culture, whether it is you as a nationality, whether it is you as a child, or whether it as you as a grown adult that is ready to make a stand. Once you make that decision to remember who you are and become that and use that to guide you, then you've really entered the energy of containment. Where we go from here, I think, is up for grabs. I think it's been incredibly intense and overwhelming. I will tell you from my experience yesterday, when Putin signed those papers, I could feel this tremendous shift in the ethers. And one of the things that's going around, whether you believe in this stuff or not, is that we're in a moment of time where we're having a big astrological change. And I don't normally follow astrology, but I found this very interesting. And Pluto is conjuncting, and I don't even understand what that means. But the last time Pluto did what it's doing right now was July 4th, 1776, when the Declaration of Independence was signed. I think we're at that kind of moment. We are at that kind of moment. I don't think the outcome for America is going to be the same. I think we have lost our power, and now we have to deal with the ramifications of not being responsible for the power that we chose and we let go into the hands of others. There's always consequences. Even if you don't want to look at it, it's still happening. So I know that was kind of heavy, but there's a lot going on. I'm bringing this to you as the clouds are forming. We've had 24 hours of wind. There's a little tiny window right now where the wind is less intense, so I'm hoping I can get the generator going to even edit this. But we're in for a wild ride here for the next 48 hours. The last 24 have been horrible, but nothing compared to what other people around the world are going. So I am very excited that freedom and the energy of freedom is rising, but it's not going to be enough. It's not enough when the problem gets kicked out of the house. You're still left with all the real problems. And so hope lives in what we can build next. Containment lives with this idea that we can't control it, but we can keep moving ourselves towards it. And that is what we're trying to do here. So we're going to take a deep breath. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? And I, my friends, will hopefully see you next time.